Hello and welcome everybody to the breathARMY introductory video series where we educate, inspire, and empower you to reach your true potential. And in this video series we address many of the topics from questions that I've heard over and over from the many different workshops and retreats I've led over the years, courses I've run. And in this video series, we have the opportunity to speak to some of those questions and answer some of the questions you might have in your own mind. In this video, we are going to talk about easing into discomfort, lessons from the cold, which has been such a powerful teacher for me in my own life. And of course, cold exposure is a practice you want to be super safe and respectful with. Of course, as Wim Hof would say, the cold is merciless, so definitely warrants a large degree of caution in entering into this exercise. But it's one that has so many benefits, and one of them is learning how to get more comfortable with the practice of being in a voluntary position of discomfort. So one that we're voluntarily engaging with, one that we're putting ourselves in, one that we can remove ourselves from, becomes really powerful in the way that we deal with other uncomfortable situations in our life. And let's face it, life is uncomfortable. Life is constantly providing us with different opportunities to be able to get more comfortable in these uncomfortable places. And when we think about the idea of growth and evolution in our lives, that discomfort is a part of that process. So the more that we can get comfortable with it, the more that we can really step into that true potential in our lives. And so one of the lessons that I've learned from the cold and how to really ease into discomfort is the idea of bringing surrender into that practice. And now cold exposure might seem like one of these things where it's like a super macho, got to be really tough and like tough it out and push through it. And that's actually not really the case with cold exposure. Cold exposure is all about how much can you soften and how much can you surrender and relax into that practice. And so that is a really powerful teaching for the rest of our life, because oftentimes we're trying to push through, we're trying to ignore all the different sensations of our body. We're trying to just like force our way through these tough situations. But what if we could just relax and soften into that and even maybe find some enjoyment in the discomfort? I remember a retreat I led a couple of years back, and there was a woman there who I knew fairly well. She was helping me out at the retreat, and she just hated this experience of the cold exposure. And I said to her, what if you smiled? And it changed everything for her, and it really clicked for her that the way that we engage with these stressful and intensely uncomfortable experiences, the choice is really there to choose whether we engage with it in a cheerful way or if we really try and fight against it and we hate every minute of it. That choice is ours. So if we choose to enjoy the practice and choose to just simply experience the sensations, this is another tip, is that we really just want to feel the different sensations that we're experiencing in these exercises. And when we're out in the cold, we're going to feel a lot. And that's a beautiful thing, because it's actually a practice to help us to relearn how to feel our bodies. But when we're in the cold and it's really cold, or we're in an ice bath, that can be really intense. And so when we're feeling those intense sensations, the practice is to just feel. But our mind has a tendency to create stories around what we're feeling. And those stories may or may not be true. Those stories might have been handed down from generation to generation, stories like the cold will kill you, or the cold will make you sick, or stories that we have around painful sensations. Well, what is pain exactly? When we're in the cold, it can feel like there's a lot of sensation in our fingers and our toes. We could interpret that as being painful, or we could just interpret that as being sensations that we receive from being in the cold, and we could just feel them. We could learn to hold those sensations. And that's a really powerful practice because, again, we can bring that into the rest of our life. And I always say that life is the ice bath. So when we get good at easing into discomfort and surrendering into that practice, when we get good at learning how to just feel all the sensations, let go of all the stories that we have associated with those sensations, and just allow ourselves to be in the experience, well, that is an incredibly powerful practice that can transcend the ice bath, and we can take that into the rest of our lives. And when we find ourselves in uncomfortable situations, then we come back to that practice of just getting good at surrendering into that, feeling all the feels, being present, and that can change everything about the way that we respond to that experience. And when we soften into that experience and just allow it to be, often those stressful experiences that we find ourselves in our life will unfold in a much different way. And so the outcomes could turn out to be much different than what we expect. And sometimes when we stop fighting against life, then life starts to unfold in a lot softer way. So something to think about there. I hope that you enjoyed the video, and I hope that you got something out of it. And of course, like I said at the beginning, cold exposure is a practice that we have to be super, super safe with. And so my encouragement would be to take a workshop with a professional, somebody that knows all the ins and outs of those. Of course, I offer the E4 Essentials workshops and E4 Experience retreats. Lots of other Wim Hof method instructors out there in the world, so find one in your area, take a workshop, learn all you need to learn so that you can be safe, and I'll hope to see you in another video here soon. Have a beautiful day. Bye for now.